Next up, we are going to discuss Nick Cannon, who was recently diagnosed officially with narcissistic personality disorder.
Oh, wow.
And although he does not know much about the diagnosis, he is nevertheless leaning into it and wants others to help him along on this journey as he continues to educate himself on
Oh,
what exactly it is that he is dealing with.
oh, geez.
So Nick Cannon reveals he has narcissistic personality disorder. Nick Cannon has reportedly opened up around his narcissistic personality disorder diagnosis, which he learned of earlier this month. More specifically, he revealed that he's always been interested in testing for it, even if he doesn't fully understand the condition just yet. I feel like there are so many labels out there, the 44-year-old remarked, but being able to embrace it and say, look, I'm healing, I need help, show me. He was also diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia earlier in his life, and he says this helped him recognize that he's neurodivergent, even though he says he kind of always knew. Regardless, the Wild 'N Out host wants to become an example for others and measure that alongside his personal development. Overall, this is a big step for Nick Cannon to take publicly, especially as people would rather focus on other controversies for the clicks. You ain't never been to a Diddy party. He asked Charlamagne the God on the Breakfast Club. Okay, it was classified as a Diddy party because you definitely been to some stuff like a Bad Boy event. So when he was in the city and all that, I've even been there when I was a kid, like 16, 17. I lived my truth. I remember standing outside, trying to get into a pub party out here in New York. So in addition, Nick Cannon's reflection on his mental health is also so he can be a better father to his many children and provide a good example for their own obstacles. I'm getting the macro necklaces, the construction paper card, all that stuff, which I love. My offices are filled with great gifts that my kids have created and conjured up. So, Nick Cannon has officially been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, something that apparently he always felt was a possibility, which I think is interesting in and of itself. But what do you think about him embracing this newfound knowledge and looking into it and seeking out the best possible comprehensive help for himself?
I mean, this is, I mean, look, man. I mean, first of all, he didn't need to go get diagnosed for me to know that he was a narcissist. Okay. First of all, if you're in Hollywood, you got your own TV shows, you got all this other stuff going on. You have some narcissistic tendencies. If you're a person that's climbed that socioeconomic ladder, you've got some narcissistic tendencies. So off the bat, from the stroke of a pen, I can diagnose a whole bunch of those people in that field. So I'm not too much surprised by his diagnosis here, not at the slightest. 1000% people are going to loop in the child stuff into this. And I'm pretty sure that, yeah, some of his traits is spilling over into why he wants to do all of this stuff and have all his kids probably at some point be in some form of entertainment. Some egocentric stuff going on there, you know. So I'm pretty sure people are going to start slathering that on. But here's my thing on this. Okay, when you go down the street, when you just live your everyday life, you're encountering people that have not been diagnosed yet. There's a lot of things going on. Honestly, if you want to consider Western society as narcissistic disorder, if you ask me, consumerism and all this other stuff that we got going on right now, these are just nothing but what do you call the tentacles of narcissistic behaviors. And the one that can actually crystallize this, cultivate it into a career path where you were the biggest narcissist of the other narcissists, you're going to get rewarded in these fields, such as being in entertainment. So that's why, for the most part, celebrities are abrasive. People are surprised when celebrities actually do kind-hearted things. Because they seem to be so self-absorbed and into themselves. So me personally, I'm not surprised by this at all. I think that there's a lot of undiagnosed narcissist people running around right now. I think that this is just the signs of the time here in North America. This type of thought pattern has been gradually growing. People have gone from a community based way of living, from living in communal type neighborhoods, to just immediate nuclear families, to just living by yourself in an apartment. And then when all of those things go away, family, community, and all that other stuff, and only thing you have you and your thoughts, well, that's what you're going to be mostly promoting all the time. You're not going to be promoting the upward mobility of everybody else around you. There's nobody around you to bring up. So naturally, you'll just turn inward and only think about yourself. So when people cut you off in traffic, when people are being rude over the phone, when people are doing all of these crazy things, they're just a byproduct of a thought pattern that's going on here in North America. And Nick Cannon is a successful one. So, yeah, not surprised by his diagnosis. Charlemagne, we can throw him in a boat too. He's not going to sit there and admit it, but he's a damn narc for sure. And anybody else in his little cohort there. But what are your thoughts on Sir Nick Cannon being diagnosed with narcissistic disorder, personality disorder? What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I could call that too. I think that this diagnosis is just being played up for media attention.
1,000.
Yeah,
That's a narcissistic play.
yeah, it is. So he's being consistent with the diagnosis, I guess. Got to give him, got to give him credit for that. I do agree. I think I said, shouts out to Valerie White. I mentioned this before when I was co-opting at FAMU for that one semester. I was trying to get my journalism minor. I was taking her class, and one of the things that she said to me that I'll never forget was, "You'd be amazed how many mentally unhinged people are walking around in regular society, and you just never know it." And I've also said before many times that narcissism has become an acceptable form of behavior. And if you don't believe me, see the previous topic that we just discussed. Just think about this for a second. Okay, we now live in a world in which a person can can grab their phone and start recording themselves acting out and being funny, amass millions of followers, and then get paid as an endorser to do so. And then they get more followers, and then they become an influencer, and then they get more followers, and then all of a sudden they're at NBA All-Star Weekend performing in the Celebrity All-Star Game. We live in a world in which narcissism has been rewarded. So, let alone being diagnosed with the disorder aspect of it, living as a narcissistic person is a behavioral trait that has been rewarded in today's society.
Yep.
This is why you see people doing things in public spaces without taking into account how that act or behavior will affect the other person, because the thought of how it affects the other person doesn't occur to them, because they have been conditioned psychologically to believe that it only needs to affect them in the beneficial way that it needs to. So when you go to a public parking lot, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. That's why I feel comfortable talking like this. I can't be the only one who feels like this. But when you go to a public parking lot and you think that you've found a parking space, and you go to park into the parking space, and there's a shopping cart that's just in the middle of the parking space, that isn't because the person was in a hurry. That person left that buggy in that parking space because they didn't care about the fact that the next person would have to physically get out of their car to move it, if there wasn't an employee who came to move it first before them. I'll take it a step further. You go into a public restroom, and you go into a stall, and it looks like a bomb went off in there. Now, you think that you think the thought of cleaning up after this person occurred to this? Like, if you believe that the thought of cleaning up after themselves occurred to this person, and they just didn't do it for some random reason because maybe they're in a hurry or they had to keep it moving. That's not what happened. This person did what they did in that bathroom and left it that way because they had no consideration for the fact that someone else may need to use it. I frequent the gym all the time. Okay, one of my gripes with public gyms and why one of my greatest aspirations in life is to have a home gym. If
Mhm.
I My greatest aspirations in life, one of them rather, is to have my own home gym so that I can have my own domain to do my thing, work out. I want to have everything that I need so that I don't have to deal with people. Not because I want to be away from people or avoid people, but because people have no respect for others in public spaces. And I go to the gym all the time. People take equipment, they go all the way across the building, they leave it there, they don't return it to where they got it from. They leave their trash on the ground, they're wiping their face, they're wiping their hands, and then they're throwing the trash on the floor, despite the fact that there is a trash can 18 feet away. And if you're thinking that there just no, why would this person not walk the 18 feet to go and throw the trash away?
Mhm.
It's not that hard. The trash can's right there. You take 4 steps and you're there. Put it in the trash can. But they decided that it was best to just throw it on the ground. Now, there's a psychological reason for that. That reason being they don't even think about that their brain, their cerebral cortex literally does not take into account how that action is going to affect the next person. Whether it be the next patron who can maybe slip on it, touch it, or the employee who might have to do that work to clean up after you, despite the fact that you're an adult who's perfectly capable of cleaning up after yourself. The air of narcissism is no longer a topical conversation. It has become this underlying acceptable form of behavior that we as humans simply embrace because who cares? How does this act or action or this behavior affect me? Now, what does that have to do with Nick Cannon? It has to do with Nick Cannon because he's a walking narc, just like everyone else, just like most people I would gather around here are walking narcs, especially people, as you alluded to, in the entertainment space, to whom it literally pays to be this way.
Exactly.
So why wouldn't he be a narcissist? You don't even got to go get that disorder, that diagnosis, bro. Like we could have told you that already, and I'm not a psychologist.
Exactly.
So I guess, maybe he wants to be on the cutting edge of an ongoing Hollywood conversation about mental health or something. Like
Mhm.
maybe he'll be able to parlay this into something that helps his career because that's how these weird old conversations work nowadays.
Exactly.
But narcissism is no longer something that we talk about as this person needs to get that figured out. We don't even discuss it anymore. We just observe it and move on and allow people to languish in their respective narcissisms because we've just accepted that it's okay for people to be this way. And you see it all the time in the way people drive. You see it all the time in the way people shop. You see it all the time in the way people attend otherwise public spaces. There's no regard to how people's actions or behaviors affect others. There's no consideration for it. The thought process of how this can happen to the next person does not compute. It's just not even a consideration. So he and others like him are narcissists, whether they get the diagnosis or not.
Yeah, 1000, man. And to speak real quickly on you mentioning people blowing up toilets. Um, I was a cab driver at one point, so I had to visit a lot of public ones. And I've seen some traumatic things in my life that unfortunately I can't seem to wipe from my memory. And I've seen situations where they did their business in there, a number two, and there's no toilet paper. So there's no toilet paper in the toilet. It's just crap in there. So I go, well, what did you do? That person's walking around with crap in their ass, sat in their car and just drove the hell off. So some of those people, I really think they house like that too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, some of them people, you know what I'm saying? Some people really live like that. And so yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Because I've also did some odd jobs during turn and stuff like that, in college and stuff. So cleaning up apartments, getting it ready for the next people that's moving in. And I've seen some crazy stuff. People live wild.
Yeah.
They live like some people live like animals. So yeah, man, we share the world with some wild people. But I think it was about a couple weeks ago or whatever when we had a conversation about the hunter gatherers.
Mm-hmm.
And and one thing that people that still live like that today, well, they don't really have to deal with now I'm talking about the true ones now, the ones that's still in the bush.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Loinclothers.
Right.
Okay, they don't have to deal with littering. They don't have to deal with certain concepts. There's still community going on. They behave themselves. So this isn't something that's a human problem. This is a human conditioning problem. And people have been conditioned here in the West to be consumers and to only think of themselves. And as I mentioned in my opening part, where I said that the way of living went from community and communal, which is more of the hunter-gatherer kind, to just a nuclear family type of thing. Because even if you want to do the community type of thing, where back in the day people was having kids to work on farms and stuff like that was a situation where people knew their neighbor, everything was making sense, and it's community stuff. So even with the nuclear family stuff, you still had grandma, grandpa, and everybody else in between. Everybody still knows everybody, and there's still like a communal kind of way of going. But then once you bust everything down to me, I, ways of thinking, then you have more of a narcissistic personality situation going on. And these are the ways that Western society and people are being trained to behave. So at this point, we getting into the situation where, like I was in, I think it was The Dark Knight or whatever, when the Joker had the bomb on a boat and he was doing a social experiment, basically saying that, hey, these people will blow themselves up if you let them. They're all animals. And so, in the movie, it got real Hollywood, and the prisoner man, and Debo was on that boat. He didn't want to blow people up. You know what I'm saying? So, it got real Hollywood. But I would argue that I was agreeing with the Joker. I was like, those people gonna blow each other up. Yeah, they're prisoners, scoundrels. They had their shot at life. Blow those MFers up, And so that's pretty much where people are. But innately, I would argue, well, I think innately you got both sides in you. You got an animal side, and then you have a side that can be trained to not be your animal side. And in those cultures and those societies that people think that are primitive, they have a social construct that they respect each other, their environment around them, and they just keep on moving. Versus this air quote advanced one, where there's no empathy or anything at all. Everybody's out looking for self. Now there's plastic floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
And so how do we get here? So it's a way of thought that people have been cultivated and trained into thinking like. And so for people out here that think that, oh yeah, we've got it figured out here in the first world, do we? We produce more trash than anybody else. You think that's having things figured out? So Mr. Nick Cannon here is a celebrity, a big wig in a society full of crazy people. So of course he's a narcissist. So I just wanted to bring that point up as well, that this isn't an innate thing. In movies in Hollywood, they like to have aliens come down and describe how nasty these humans are. How do you only thing you do is war and pollute the planet. So we're here to save it. The world wasn't always like this. And the people have been on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. It just started getting like this. So this isn't a human thing. This is a certain kind of thought pattern that needs to go away. So we got to get back to community. We got to get back to family. So at that point, if everybody looked at people like community, then people wouldn't leave that shopping cart there. And especially this time of season where people are fighting over parking spaces. I had it first. You know what I'm saying? People swooping in the spots just so you don't get it. all this other mad stuff that go on because everybody's looking out for self, you really see it on display. So yeah, I would just like to argue that this isn't a human thing. It's not an innate thing in the sense that this is just how it is. It's like, no, this is a certain thought pattern, and we got to get up out of it. So yeah, so the likes of Nick Cannon and anybody else like him, that's up there in Hollywood, and like I mentioned, Charlemagne, everybody on the Breakfast Club, they were just having a narcissistic conversation. And last thing, and I agree with you, they're playing this off because they was mentioning the Diddy things, so they're going to try to play some mental health angle of why they were out there getting weird or something. Like, this is a narcissistic play, so he's given us some bait or whatever for some back end weird stuff later. Now we have to empathize with these celebrities now because they suffer from
they're not right in the head.
Yeah. I'm not going for it, bro.
Yeah, and people better not go for that if that happens, because that's complete and utter BS. It's the most aggravating thing in the world. But it's of course hard to argue against behaving in a particular way when you are rewarded and paid for it. And the most disturbing aspect of the phenomenon that you describe is the fact that it's not only encouraged to embrace one's narcissism, but it's also like it can be rewarding, literally.
Yeah.
Like you can be paid for it via attention, which is its own form of currency, or actually being paid for it, with actual currency. And this is where we are with this stuff. So I do think it's a psychosomatic dynamic. I do agree with that, but it's like baked into the bread at this point. People don't even realize it. Like it's become so baked into the bread of our daily regimen that when people do these various things, they don't even realizing that they're being selfish.
Yep.
Like a person who throws trash on the ground doesn't even know that that's a selfish act. That's how bad it's gotten. Yep. They don't even realize it. They just think, let the worker pick it up, or let whoever pick it up, or they don't even think about who's going to pick it up. They just do it because who cares? They just do it. So that's where we've gotten with this stuff, man. So, he ain't, he is just one of many at this point. He has notoriety as a celebrity, but there's a slew of people just walking around out here doing narcissistic stuff all day, every day.
Yep. Hey man, if y'all ain't got family, because nobody really got a community no more. But you know what I'm saying? Get with your family. And if you ain't really got family like that, get with your close ones like that, your loved ones like that, and really try to build something and with those people again. And if you already have that going, keep it going strong, because that's what keeps you sane in this mad world. But all those people that's hollering that they lonely and depressed and all this other stuff, and they're trying to make depression seem righteous, being by yourself seem righteous. Those are the most miserable people going around the world right now. So if you got loved ones right now, hold them close, because those are the ones that's keeping you sane. So just like to throw that out there as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good luck to Nick Cannon and his diagnosis. I'm sure they'll be talking about, good luck on your journey. Good luck on your journey.
Yeah. Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah. Whatever. How about just don't be selfish. Just don't be selfish.
How about that?